Baker Mayfield wanted to play for the Colts. And I said this earlier today. He's got to be so upset that the spot he wanted in Indy gets filled by a guy who came to the NFL when he was 13 years old, when Baker Mayfield was 13 years old. That the Colts jump on Matt Ryan, who's got 2-3 years left. They spurn Baker Mayfield, and now he's a man without a country, and there's one less country that's off the table. People thought, well, maybe the Panthers would make a move because they're in this mode where they'll take anybody they can get and hope that they can fashion him into a franchise quarterback. According to David Newton of ESPN.com, the Panthers not interested in Baker Mayfield. So cross them off the list if they were ever on it. I guess what was happening is somebody was reporting the Panthers wanted Baker. Newton says no. So I don't know what the Panthers are going to do. They've got Sam Darnold. They didn't want another top 3 quarterback from the 2018 draft class on the roster. So for Baker, I still go back to Seattle or Detroit. Yeah. Those are the two that make the most sense to me. And I know there's no reason yet to believe Detroit is interested, but I think John Dorsey should be pounding on the table. I think Dan Campbell should be saying, this is the guy who epitomizes the kind of grit and toughness we are building into this team. Chris Spielman should say the same thing. And, yeah, it would cost some dead cap money and it would hurt and, they'd move on from Jared Goff, whatever the case may be. I think they should do it. And maybe they're waiting. Let the market soften. Let the Browns get desperate. And maybe you can steal Baker Mayfield or maybe even have the Browns pay some of the $18.8 million to offset the financial consequences of moving on from Jared Goff. But this is kind of misguided spider sense because I've got nothing to base this on other than my own eyes and my own sense of how the NFL is currently constructed. And Detroit seems to be the place where Mayfield should go. Who knows? But the news that I've completely deviated away from is the Panthers don't want him.
Yeah, Mike, and the market for him has just dried up, and it does look like it's going to be a low-round draft pick, and it may be a Teddy Bridgewater even type trade where Carolina took on some of that money and some of that cap hit to trade him to Denver for Denver to take him. It may be something like that, Mike, but it's obvious that there is not a huge market right now for Baker Mayfield, which is really and truly stunning. I mean, this is a guy who was a number 1 overall pick in 2018. He led the Browns to their first playoff victory since 1994 last season. This is a guy who's done some things. I realize he had the shoulder injury. I realize he was not very good. I realize teammates have not come to his defense. And in fact, Odell Beckham was one of the guys who talked his way out of Cleveland because he didn't like Baker Mayfield. I get all of that, but it really, truly is a stunning fall for a guy who everyone thought was going to be a great NFL player, and it's just not quite turned out like that for Baker Mayfield. But he's shown enough moments that you would think someone would have interest in him, that he would be an upgrade on their quarterback position. And you're right, the team you look toward is Seattle. I just can't imagine that they're going to go into the season with Drew Lock, and Pete Carroll said today they do want Geno Smith back, and Jacob Eason. I mean, maybe they're trying to tank for next year to get one of these quarterbacks who's coming out next year. Maybe that's their intent, but I can't imagine that they're going to go into the season with one of those guys as their starting quarterback.
Or maybe everyone is just keeping their cards close to the vest because the Browns are quickly going to get desperate and they're going to do what they have to do to unload Baker Mayfield. And, there was a sense around the league that Mayfield needs to be humbled, and potentially he has been by not even getting a shot with the Colts. And I don't think the Colts would have wanted him without a heaping helping of humble pie because they had to deal with Carson Wentz last year, and there are some similarities, personality and circumstance, and, leaving a team and feeling like you were wronged and you're right, and maybe it just doesn't go as smoothly as it could. I think the Colts are in a much better spot with Matt Ryan, and maybe if Baker Mayfield ends up being traded for a 6th round or a 7th round pick, or the Browns have to pay part of his salary, or worst case scenario, he gets cut and the Browns just get an offset based on whatever he makes elsewhere. I don't think that happens. And if they would cut him, I think the Steelers signed Mitchell Trubisky knowing that he was the best available option that they didn't have to trade for. I think if Baker Mayfield suddenly becomes available, you have to consider him if you're the Steelers, don't you?
Yeah, I had that on my list of if they cut him, that's the problem for the Browns. They know that the Steelers would have interest in him. And I would love for him to go to the Steelers and the Steelers to have all those quarterbacks to try and choose from, because I think, you have a chance to hit on one of those guys, whether it's Dwayne Haskins. I don't think it's Mason Rudolph, but, Mitchell Trubisky, maybe it's him, and maybe it's Baker Mayfield, but you let those guys go compete. I would love that for the Steelers if that were to happen, but the Browns know that. To me, they cannot cut him because that's the obvious choice for both of them, for Baker to want to go there and for the Steelers to want Baker.
Yeah, and I think that's all the more reason for, at the end of the day, the Browns to find a destination, preferably in the NFC. And really, there's no team in the AFC that I would even look to and say, other than the Steelers, they would want Baker Mayfield. So you trade him to an NFC team. You don't have to worry about him landing in Pittsburgh. He's out of your hair forever. You'll see him once every 4 years or thereabouts, even comes to that. But that makes sense. But it's not going to be any type of significant return for the Cleveland Browns when they move on from Baker Mayfield.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.